And hello again, and here we have 4 watches that don't belong to me, so something a bit different today. And in fact, these 4 belong to my brother, who's slowly but surely getting into watches, and these are 4 of the watches he's got so far. So let's go through them quickly, one by one. And what we'll do is look at each one of them in turn. So let's get rid of these 3 here, one by one, and let's just concentrate on this one here, which is quite a well-known watch in the whist circles. It's a Seiko 017 Alpinist on its aftermarket green strap. I think this is a, let me see, a strap by Barton, and it's a silicone strap. So let's just concentrate on this one first. And so let's start off with the first watch, the Seiko 017 Alpinist. Now, there are plenty of reviews of this watch online, so I won't go into massive detail about it because I'm sure there are plenty of other YouTube videos which do a much better job than I can. But I'll just give you my first impressions having seen this watch for the first time about an hour ago. And the first one is, the dial's really nice. I mean, I didn't think I'd like a green sunburst dial, but yeah, it's really nice. I also like the applied markers and numbers there. And I also like the cathedral hands, which of course are lume filled. And quite unusually, this watch has a little feature here. It's got an internal bezel which you can turn with this second crown at the 4 o'clock position. I think it's supposed to be to help you guide your way through the alpine hills and mountains, as long as you've got a compass, which of course I don't have. And here's some more details about the watch. It's got a Seiko 6R15 movement, which has a 50-hour power reserve, which is not bad at all. It's got a screw down crown, which is signed. Hopefully you can see that. And it's actually waterproof down to 200 meters, which is pretty damn good going. That's almost like a diver, isn't it? It's got a sapphire crystal, which is nice at that sort of level of price. Quite a flat bezel. It's not domed, I don't think, in any way. It's got a date, of course. And its dimensions are 38mm across the dial. It's got a lug-to-lug width of, let me see, 46mm. And it's got a 20mm lug width for straps and so on. What else? Oh yes, it's actually quite thin. I was quite impressed. It's only and it's only 12mm thick, which is not bad at all, I think. It doesn't have a display back. It's just got quite a nice case back there, showing a kind of alpine view, and yeah, quite good going that. It seems to be pretty much fully polished apart from here at the top of the lugs, which are brushed steel. And as standard, this watch comes on a black leather strap, but my brother's changed this to a silicone strap, green one of course, and that's made by, let me see, a company called the Barton Watch Band, and I think he got that from Amazon. I just did a quick check, and sure enough, they are on Amazon, and they go for around 13 to 14 pounds, which isn't bad at all. They also make leather straps also for about a bit more money, around 24 pounds, I think. So there's the basic specs of the watch, but what about my first impressions, having not seen this watch before? And my first impressions are, it's actually quite a nicely made watch, better actually than I expected. It's already picked up a few scratches along the bezel, which is to be expected because he wears it a lot, and the general case shape is actually quite nice. It reminds me a little bit of a Rolex Oyster case. The dial's very nicely done. I would actually be surprised if that wasn't double the price that it actually sells for. It also has applied markers, which is quite a surprise at this price. And I do like the gold cathedral hands, which obviously are fully loomed. The internal bezel's a bit of a novelty, and it seems to work quite well. It's quite smooth, but it does actually move quite easily. I can imagine that would be knocked without any problems at all. There's no kind of resistance to it at all, and as I say, I think that would probably get moved quite easily. In comparison, however, the crown, which is a screw down crown, is actually very stiff and quite difficult to pull out. I didn't mess with it, but yeah, it doesn't feel too easy to do. Perhaps I'm not using the force, I don't know. I'm used to more expensive watches like a Rolex and so on. The winding, yeah, it feels okay. Nothing to complain about. I mean, obviously it's not a Rolex or anything, but again, not too bad at all. So overall, I think for the price, I'm actually quite impressed with this watch, having never seen one before. I know they're very popular on the forums, a quite popular watch from Seiko, and I can see why. Yeah, so for the price, as I say, it seems to me they go for between £150 and £180, something like that. And at that price, I think you'd be hard pressed to find a better quality new watch. So, oops, there you go, it's gone out of picture, it's gone out of shot. So yeah, overall I'd say that's a big win, and if I was into this kind of watch, I mean, I'm not a fan of green watches at all, but I'm not sure I'd keep it on a black leather strap. I think my brother's quite right to change it. Again, I'm not too keen on this green strap here, but it's his watch, so if he likes it, that's fine. Again, I'm not too keen on green dial watches anyway, but if I was, I think this particular one is a great example, and I must say I do like that sunburst finish on the watch along with the cathedral hands. So yeah, overall, if you are looking for a watch in that sort of price range, that's a little bit above the sort of cheap and cheerful Seiko 5s and so on, then I would say consider this watch. It really is well worth the money, and I would say actually it wouldn't surprise me if this cost twice as much as it actually does. So overall, I give it a big thumbs up. And so with that one done, let's move the Saab 17 Alpinist out of the way, and we'll bring in the next one, which is this 1966 Seiko. And the next watch in the collection is this 1966 Seiko Sealion M88, the so-called week data. And it's called that because it's got quite an interesting way of showing the day of the week. Here on the left-hand side it says Saturday and the number 6, which seems a bit odd because it shows Monday with number 1 and Tuesday with a 2 and Wednesday with a 3 and so on, right through to Sunday with a 7, which seems a bit odd. But I guess somebody somewhere might find that useful, I don't know. And of course it's also got the date here at 3 o'clock. And I must say the first thing I noticed when I first had a look at this watch was the unusual hour markers. They've got a sort of plus sign, cross sign on the top of each marker. I don't know if this camera can pick it up, but it is quite unusual. I do quite like it. It's also got this sort of cross lines across the face of the dial as well, which is quite interesting. It says on there it's got 26 jewels, which is quite a lot. I was quite surprised about that. And in fact it has quite a well-known and popular and well-respected Seiko movement, the 6209. In this case it's a 6209-8050. It's not an expensive watch this when it was new, but nevertheless the movement inside it is quite well regarded. What else can we say about it? Well, obviously it's got a cushion case, which is both brushed and polished on its bevels there, and it looks quite nice, very sort of mid-century kind of style to it, which is quite unusual. I actually quite like this. I would be surprised I did like it, but I do like it. It's got a very small crown too. Look at the size of that, a tiny little crown with polished edges there to the case, as well as a brushed top. The lug width is, let me see, well I don't know yet, so I've got my calipers here out, the little Vern. Don't worry Andy, I've got some tape on here to protect it, so let's just see. Yeah, that's the 20mm lug width for the strap, and lug to lug, let's just see. A bit tricky to measure actually because it's quite an unusual shape, but let's just see. Oh, that's actually quite small. It's about, just try it one more time. A bit tricky to do while I'm filming at the same time, but we'll do our best. Yeah, that is quite small. It's only about 39 or 40mm. Obviously with the shape of the case, you can't really compare it with a standard round case model. In terms of the width, let's just see. Yeah, it's quite small, about 35mm. And this way, is it going to be the same? Who knows? Let's see. Yeah, it's about 35mm. And the dial width, or the bezel width I should say, is, let me see, if we exclude the bezel, yeah, it's looking like about 31mm. So not a big watch, although it does actually wear a lot bigger than its dimensions. Let me just put it on and I'll show you that. Okay, so it actually wears a little bit bigger than its size might indicate. I guess that's the cushion shape. It's actually very slim. I mean, here we are on my 7¼ inch wrist. I wouldn't say that's too small. I would happily wear that as a kind of dress watch, or just an interesting watch to wear from time to time. I'm told it does actually keep very good time. It's about 20 seconds a day out, which isn't bad for such an old movement. Also, you might notice it's got drilled lugs, which is quite nice. Makes it a lot easier to change the straps. Yeah, so a very nice watch indeed. I'm not sure what the price was because it was a birthday present, so I have no idea. Anyway, let's get this back off my wrist. Obviously the strap's not standard. I mean, that would have died decades ago. So let's put him back on there. And the week data names attached to quite a lot of models in the Seiko range. There's an M55, an M88, an M, I think, 89. And a lot of them actually aren't like this. They're not in this cushion case, they're actually standard round case. So it's quite a large variety of models there to choose from if this is something that you are interested in. This one, as I say, is from 1966, and it seems like they made that particular model for quite a while, from sort of early 60s right through to the late 60s. And it seems that Seiko made a range of models called the Weekender, both square cased or cushion cased and round cased, right through the 60s. So there are quite a big variety there of models to choose from, and certainly it's something that I'd never heard of before, but I do quite like it. I was actually quite surprised. One nice thing is the crown, although it's actually tiny, is quite easy to pull out. You know, everything works. I've not messed with it because it's not my watch, but yeah, it's a very interesting sort of mid-century style, and if you're into that sort of thing, which obviously my brother is, then it may well suit you. So it's something to look at, and as I say, it's called the Week Data. So if you're into that style of watch, something a bit different from Seiko, so you know it's going to be well made, it's going to last, and hopefully you can find the spare parts, it's something to think about and something perhaps to consider in your collection. It's certainly something that I've been quite surprised at, and I'm surprised how much I like it. Anyway, that's the Seiko Sealion M88. Oh, hang on, I almost forgot. I should turn it over and show you the case back. It's got a nice little sea line there. Let's see if we can get that in the sunshine. If you can see that. A nice little sea line there. It says Sealion M88. Yeah, so quite an unusual watch and nice and slim. In fact, I should actually find out how slim it is. And actually I forgot to measure how slim it is. Let me see how thick it is. And it's quite a nice, where are we? 12 mil, yeah, so nice slim watch, and that's something I do like, a nice slim watch. It means you don't bash it against things as you move around with the watch on your wrist. So yeah, let's spin round, and there it is. So yeah, there's the Sealion M88 from Seiko, made in 1966, the so-called Week Data. So, with that one done, let's move on to the next watch. And so next up is this Smith's watch, made in 1962, and it's an Astral, and it's made in a 9-carat solid gold case. A bit tricky to find out much about the movement inside here because the case back is completely blank, as you can see. However, I do know it's a 17 dual lever escapement movement, which was quite common at the time, made by Smiths of course, and this particular model wasn't a particularly high-end model. It's quite a low end in their range, but having said that, it's not gold plated as many were. It's being solid gold, it obviously is more of a sort of high-end version within that particular range. It does have a really nice dial. I'm hoping that my camera can pick it up. It's sort of like a linen dial. It reminds me of a linen dial from a Rolex Datejust, and it's also got applied markers, and I don't know if they're gold as well, but I suspect they are, along with the hands, because as I say, I can't see any tarnishing on there whatsoever. So yeah, I think it's a pretty high quality movement. So yeah, it seems like quite a well made watch, quite high quality watch for its time, but it is, however, absolutely tiny. I just measured it, and it turns out the watch is actually only 32mm in width. The lug width is a mere 16mm. It's 12mm thick. It has actually got quite a nice Perspex domed crystal there. Hopefully you can see that, see if my hand gets out of the way of all the shadows. And what else can we tell you? Oh yes, the lug to lug is only 36mm, so a very small watch. These days I think that would be classed as a lady's watch, not a particularly big one at that. And there it is on my 7 1/4 inch wrist. It must say it does look tiny, doesn't it? To think that was a pretty standard size back in the early 60s when it was made. I mean, it's a lovely watch. It's very well designed. I do like the details of the batons and the dial itself, but I can't say I'd ever wear it. It's just too small. However, in comparison to the Seiko Sealion from 66 we just saw, I do like the large crown. I mean, that's got a good sized crown there, and it does wind up very nicely, very simple to use. It feels quite nice, and I'm told it keeps time. It's not too bad. It loses around 3 to 4 minutes a day, which given it's 55 years old, I think isn't too bad. And cost-wise, these are actually a very good value compared to a Swiss watch of similar quality in the 9-carat gold. This is probably less than half the price, in excellent condition. I think this one was around £200 to £300, although I have seen them online and from specialists for more than 500 for the same style of watch. If it is, however, in poor quality, you can get them for a few pounds, you know, sort of £30, £40 on eBay. But I would say if you do want something like this for your collection, go for quality, don't buy a cheap one. It's a false economy. Buy a good one in good nick that has been serviced and actually works quite well and isn't banged up and with a damaged dial. And finally, I did ask the question of my brother why he bought this particular watch. And one answer was he wanted a British watch, and the second reason was because this particular watch was made in Cheltenham, which is about 10 miles away from where he lives at the moment, so quite a local connection there. And in fact, Smiths did have a huge factory up in Scotland, I think in Dundee, back in the 60s, along with another factory making watches, as I say, in Cheltenham. So they were a really big company making watches, clocks, all kinds of things in the post-war period. However, sadly, those large factories closed down in the quartz crisis, and eventually the Smiths brand died a death. However, it was bought by a company based in Sheffield who now make watches with the Smiths name. And what we have here is a PRS-36 Smiths watch made by Time Factors in Sheffield, England, and it's got a cushion-shaped case made from 316L marine grade steel, stainless steel of course, and it's using quite an interesting movement. If we look on the back here, it's actually a hand-wound movement, and it's a new all-stock movement from the 1970s made by, well, forgive my pronunciation, but it's made by Pesu, and it's a 7040. That is a PESEUX. And actually that was also used by Nomos when they first started out back in the 1990s. So quite a nice movement, well made. It's got some Cotes de Genève striping on there, quite well finished, and yeah, I'm quite impressed with it actually. To find such a movement in quite a cheap watch, and by cheap in fact this sells for around 300, and let me just check, yep, £395. Now I'm not sure if they're still available because Time Factors make quite small batches of watches, so sometimes they sell out and sometimes not, so you really need to go on the Time Factors website to see what's available and what isn't. The case is a 37mm size, and it actually wears a bit bigger than that due to its cushion shape. It is, however, quite thin. It's a very narrow case at only 10mm as I measured it. I guess that's because it's not automatic, it's just hand wound. In terms of lug to lug, let me just check, it's 43mm, which is actually quite short. Most watches are sort of 46, 47, 48, and again I think that's because of its cushion shape. Lug to lug width is quite wide at 20mm. And I think this blue leather strap is obviously aftermarket. It didn't come with that, I don't think. And now turning to the dial, it's got a kind of brush finish top to bottom rather than a sunburst finish. Hopefully the sun's just come out so you can see that a bit better. It's got the sub dial obviously at 6 o'clock with radial markings there, and the Arab numerals are illumined with super luminova, as are the hands, which look like needle hands. And actually they're quite well done. They also seem to have a blue finish on the edges, which I guess means it's blue steel. So again, that's a good sign. And in fact, I do like the styling of the dial. I think it suits the watch really, really well, particularly with the hands and the numerals. And yeah, it's not really modern, but then again, it's not really retro. It kind of fits somewhere in between, and I think it suits the watch very nicely indeed. And looking at the movement again, it runs at 21,600 VPH, which is a bit slow these days, but then again it's the same as an Omega Speedmaster, so it's not too slow really. Again, it is quite well finished. I just hope my camera can pick up that in this light, which is changing all the time as the sun starts to go down. It also features some blue screws, which is quite nice to see. And the display case back has a sapphire crystal, as indeed does the front. Let me see if I can show you the crystal edge on it. Actually seems to be completely flush with the case, which I actually quite like, because it means that there's less chance of it being bashed around. It gives a very sort of late 50s, 60s look to the watch, which I do quite like. And here's a quick look at it on my wrist, which is 7¼ inches as usual. And as I say, for a 37mm watch, it does wear quite big, more like a 40, I would say. So there's a very quick look at this Smith's PRS 36. Overall, actually, I'm very impressed with it. I mean, for the price, what, £395? I don't think you'll find a better watch out there, particularly with its rather nice 1970s new old stock manual wind movement there in the back. I'd be quite happy to have that in my collection, and I am overall very impressed with it, particularly at that price. As indeed I was also impressed with this Seiko Alpinist Saab 017. Now, I guess this is much more well known than the Smith's model, but overall, given the choice, I'd be happy to have both. But if I had to choose, I think I'd go for Smith's every time. It just seems to have a bit more quality about it, particularly with that movement in the back. So anyway, there's a very, very quick look at those 4 watches. I would like to spend more time with them, but I've only got an hour or 2 with them before they've got to go back. So I hope you enjoyed that. So thanks for watching, and cheers.